Hi guys, it's Allie. I'm just gonna wait another minute or two and then we'll start. Hope everybody's having a good Monday. Sorry for the wobbliness to begin. I'm just holding my camera in my hand for the moment. Alrighty. Hello. I just thought I would introduce myself first of all, because I'm very rarely on camera. I just don't like being on camera as far as the face goes. So I'm Allison Cope, and I've been a member of Power Poppy since day one. Thanks, Marcy. And I have to say that I work with the most amazing team of designers, and I am glad that I am a part of that little family, as we call ourselves. So today I'm going to be watercoloring with some inexpensive watercolors because not everybody can afford the expensive, big, huge palettes. And it's okay because sometimes you got to put your money elsewhere. So I thought I would work with some inexpensive ones today just to show you that you don't need to have expensive products to have fun and create something pretty. So I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to start having. All right, and away we go. If you get dizzy, just give me a second here as I position my camera, okay? And hopefully I should be able to see your comments and questions if you have any. Let me readjust here. I have to get it into its little rubber grips to make sure that I'm good and tight. Are you going to be ornery today? All right. Oops, hang on. Technical difficulties. Okay. Sorry, guys. It's not wanting to cooperate with me today. All right. So today we're going to be working with the My English Rose Stamp Set by Power Poppy. I've used some Juicy Ink by Ink on 3, some Gold Detail Embossing Powder by Recollections. Oh my goodness, can't speak today. This is Michael's brand. I've got some Scotch Post-it tape, a couple of Grumbacher watercolor brushes, a size 4 and a size 7. And this is the watercolor that I'm going to be using today, and it's the Yarka product. And all it has is 12 colors, and we'll talk more. I've got good old paper towel. I've got a couple of water dishes off to the side here, and we're going to be using Arch's cold press 140-pound watercolor. Okay. So I've done a little bit of work ahead of time just so that I'm ready for you guys. Sorry. And what I've done is I have embossed our image here onto my watercolor paper. And I'm going to have to adjust my phone again here, guys. And I use that Juicy Ink to first stamped my image, and then I added my gold embossing powder, and then I heat set it. So hopefully you guys can see this image. So then I got a nice gold bossy outline. All right, so pretty, especially for a Valentine's card. It's nice to have something that has a little bit more zippity-doo than just an inked image. All right. So again, we're going to use the Yarka. And I always swatch my color, so I lost my insert for this. This is my swatch one, so exact pattern. So black and brown, blue, and all that jazz. Okay. So those are the base colors that my palette contains. Like I said, this is inexpensive set. I don't think I paid more than $12 Canadian for it. So like I said, it's inexpensive. And what I tend to use as a palette, I'm going to use the back of my stamp pocket because it's clear and it's white on the back of my printed piece there. And I'm going to use it as my palette. There. Okay. So, of course, you can mix any color that you need, right? If you did your primary art class and studied color, you know that your primaries are red, blue, and yellow when it comes to paint. And so, you know what? I'm going to put this on the other side because I think you'll be able to see this better. So you can make any color that you want. Okay. So I'm going to take my little Distress sprayer here and I'm going to just add water into each of those little wells just to get those pans at least started. You do have to mix these in. They are a very concentrated watercolor. So you can thin them down as much as you want just by adding water. So today, let's start on our background. What I want to do is I want to put a really loose, kind of very, very soft color in behind our rose. So I think that's what we'll start with today. They say you should try and use a bigger brush to do your work, even your detailed work, because you learned to use a light touch and to work with that fine. You can use whatever brush you wish, but I'm going to use my Grumbacher number 7. So first, I'm just taking good old clean, clear water. And what I want to do is I want to basically paint around the edge of our rose. And then I'm going to take my water out probably a little bit farther than where I want it. That'll help it make a really, really subtle bleed instead of having a really, really harsh line, which I don't want. So let's go all the way around our rose. The other tip or trick when doing something like this is to have a stamped image of the same image. So our beautiful rose here. Stamp it in your regular black ink and have it off to the side because it gives you a reference sometimes, especially if your image is very, very detailed. Sometimes you lose some of the lines, not necessarily with an embossed image like this one, but if you're going to do a no line coloring technique, the lines tend to disappear. So if you have an image off to the side of whatever you're coloring in nice black stark ink, at least it gives you a reference point as to, oh, that's supposed to be a petal and that's supposed to be a leaf. So you use it as a reference point. So I'm trying to use the light here and making sure that I've got water where I need it. I'm just going back into, I need to get here too. There we go. So you may hear a few background noises here. We live fairly close to the rail lines, and you may hear a few train whistles as I do this tutorial today. So, all right, I'm just putting in a little bit more water into those negatives. And I have a hair. There we go. Okay. So I think today, I think maybe we'll go yellow for a background. So I'm just dipping. I don't think I want to go like stark yellow. So let's add just a tiny bit of orange just to make it a little bit more orange. And I'm going to add, see if I can get more paint up here because I'm not sure how much I'll need. And it's better to have too much than not enough and have to try and color match it because that is not fun. Okay, I'm going to add just a touch more of that orange here. And I'm just going to turn my light a bit because the glare. All right. So I'm just mixing color. Okay, so adding water also helps thin out those pigments. So if you want something lighter, just add more water. You can also add it to your brush as well. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to kind of drop in my heavy pigments closer to my image. So because that water is spread out wider, it's just going to wick itself out to those outer edges. And that's what I want. It creates a softer edge and not an edge with a line, because it's not the look I want. So just using full pigments and just dropping those in, trying not to drop it in where I don't want it, but if you do that, just use your paper towel. Just use an end or something like that and dip it right in there, and what it does, it just wicks it right up. So again, I'm just dropping heavier pigments in right against that rose image, and don't forget those tiny little areas that you need background color in. And the more you use that larger brush with the larger end, the more you get to learn the control aspect of using that brush in that instance, which is very helpful. And if you get too much water in a spot, say like, see the little holes here, take a nice clean brush. Okay, so I'm just using my paper towel and blot it on, and then you can just take that thirsty brush, and it's easier to get in than say the end of a paper towel too. And just use that thirsty brush to pull up that either excess water or excess pigment, whatever you need to pick up off that paper. Hope that makes sense. And I'm going to try and make sure that this edge is kind of irregular. I don't want anything like a square or anything like that. So again, I'm just continuing to add stronger pigments in and around our image, around this little bud here, in and amongst the stem and leaves. And if you wanted an even deeper pigment, you could go right straight from your palette right into your painting. Okay, so there we go. Nice and soft and subtle. And as it dries, because of that water, you're not going to have lines, which is not what I'm looking for. I want something soft. All right. The key with working with watercolor, if you don't want things to spread, is that you work in areas that are surrounded by dry areas. So for instance, if you're working on this leaf, you don't want to work on this large petal because if they touch, even with embossing lines, yes, they do create a barrier, but they're not a very high barrier. So if you are cutting wet to wet, they might bleed. Now, you might want that look, and that's fine, but maybe you don't. So just another thing to think about. All right. Today I was kind of thinking maybe that we would go pink and orange for our rose, something different, not red. So we have a nice bright pink, and of course we've already used a little bit of our orange. So I think we're going to use this color here, and we're going to pull it to our palette and see it's very, very concentrated, like extremely concentrated. So I'm most likely going to use a lot of water, and we're going to drop the highly pigmented areas into basically a clean water. The same technique as this. Okay, so I'm just cleaning my brush off to the side here. All right, now I'm going to move you guys in a little bit more here. Whoop. Okay, and move myself into view. And so now we're going to drop in some water. And you know what? Sometimes, see our beautiful water already? That's our yellow and our orange and our pink. You can even use that. Just use your dirty water, because sometimes the dirty water is a really pretty color too. I also have a clean one off to the side here. All right. And away we go. Just going to clean out my brush. Sorry. Okay. So you also have to be aware of how much water you have in your brush too. So if you need it a little less water, then blot it on your paper towel. So since our yellow outline is still quite damp, I mean, you can go in and use your heat tool to dry it, but I really don't want to do that. I find I get harsher lines, and that's not what I want either. So I'm just going to clean off my palette here for a second, because I'm accidentally putting my hand in it, and that's going to cause me to put it on my paper. So I'm just taking random petals that are not side by side, and I'm risking with this one here making things bleed. So I'm just going to take a little bit of pigment, and I'm going to drop it towards the inside of the bloom. So however the petal is sitting, that's how I'm going to drop in my pink along that deeper, darker edge, and I'm going to have it use the water to wick towards the outer petal. So I've watered in a few petals already, so I'm going to drop in my pigments here. Now the beauty with roses is that there's so many amazing colors of them. So you really, truly can experiment with a bloom like a rose. So, and that's what I'd like to do today. So I'm going to load a little bit of orange pigment to my palette here. And we're going to use it as well to create variegated petals on the rose. So I'm going to use a little bit of watered down orange pigment. So I have it just sitting next to my red here. And I'm going to drop just ever so slightly, just in the odd spot. Nothing specific, not in a specific area, just at random. Okay. And I'm going to use my dirty water as my water here. And I'm going to pick, you know what? I'm going to be extra bold. And we're going to water down the entire inside of our rose. Haha. I'm going to just stay to those petals there. And again, if you have too much water, either go in with the first brush or just use the end of your paper towel. I've got a few petals that are really filled with water. So I'm just going to take some of that out. Okay, I'm going to drop in my pink pigments. And I'm okay because this is so tight with petals that I'm okay if they wick into one another. It just makes it more unique. So pretty much taking the center and putting in that pink pigment. Some petals are going to get high concentration of pink just because that's the way the pigment has fallen into that particular petal. And then some aren't. You're going to need light. So it's going to look variegated anyway. Okay. You can always go in and add more color. I mean, that's the great thing about watercolor. It's transparent. You just go in and layer in another thicker layer of pigment. Okay, so I'm just going to concentrate a little bit more pink into some of these. There we go. Just dropping it into anywhere onto those petals. And there we go. Just rinsing my brush. A little bit of clean water here. And I'm going to go in with that orange pigment now. And I'm going to drop it into randomized spots. There we go. And I'm okay with it bleeding because it just makes it that cooler. All right. Let's continue on with some of the outer petals because now that, I mean, it's still wet, I can feel it. If the paper feels cold, then it's still wet. That's a good way to know if your paper is still got water in it. So you can just touch it with the back of your hand and see if it's cool to the touch. And if you want to speed up that process, then just take your heat gun to it. So just coloring in some more of those larger outer petals here. And like I said, I'm okay when it bleeds today. It's kind of the look I'm going for, so I'm okay with that. So, do some of these larger petal areas. And the thing with the bleed is that, I mean, nothing is in nature is the same color, the same tone. In the same rose, you could have tons of different shades of pink or red. So To have it variegated just means it looks more natural. So normally I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't paint all the ones side by side, but like I said, we're going for a variegated look. I'm going to drop in the pink pigments and let them spread. Just having fun dropping in color. Do all the ones on the outside. This is where you try not to touch anything that's yellow at the moment because it's still damp and you don't want to mix in that pink. Just dropping color in. I mean, this is a great way to learn control too. If you're new to watercoloring, this would be a great tool to just get to know your supplies and your pigments, and it's fun. And you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. All right, I'm gonna just go back to the pink and drop in a little bit more concentrated pigments. Wherever they fall, they may fall. Perfect. Okay, and while things are still wet, I'm going to go in with that watered down orange. Just loading up my brush on the side here. Just touching random areas. It makes a really pretty coral color too when it mixes with that highly concentrated red. So it's very pretty. Make sure you get all those cracks and crevices. There is kind of a petal that kind of is square underneath there, so I'm just trying to make sure that I get all of that pigmented up. There we go. And as things dry, they're going to dry back quite a few layers. So it's going to be this bright now, but everything is going to be a little bit more soft as it dries back. Let's work on there is a bud up here. I will come back to that, but let's work on our leaves and our stem. There's two different kinds of green. There's like a bluey green here and more concentrated regular medium green. So I'm going to use a combination of both actually. I might even throw in a bit of yellow. So I'm going to load and bring my palette in here for a second. I'm going to load the majority of this color because this is my favorite of the two greens. Okay. I'm just going to load my palette for the minute, so rinse off my brush. I'm going to bring in that bluey green, which I love too. And I'm just going to load this just in case. So this is my more browny yellow tone. Okay. All right, so I've got those three colors loaded. My medium green, my bluey green, and my kind of mustardy yellow loaded. Those are all from my palette. Sorry, just moving things around here. Okay, and this is why you have to be really careful, guys. Okay, so first of all, if you get an instance like this, you can blot it up. Majority of it's gone. If you want to take up more of it, take some clean water, apply it over the area, and blot it again. I'm okay with it. There's just a teeny tiny bit of pink there. I'm okay with that. All right. I've got my brush loaded with water. And we're going to drop color into our leaves. And look, I forgot a tiny little spot in there with our background, so I'll have to go in again. I've got a green tinge to my water, but that's okay because we're painting with green. Just going to do leaves. I'll come back to the stem in a moment. Just loading water for the time being. Just a little bit. So, whoop, and there. Okay. So I'm going to start with loading that medium green in. I'm going to water it down quite a bit to be not full on pigments. I'm just going to randomly pull it across the leaf. I'm not dropping it into every kind of cell there yet. Okay, so I'm going to load that tealy blue, or tealy green, sorry, into my brush. I'm watering it down on my palette. And then we're going to drop color in of that. Because I don't know, there's something about that gorgeous tealy blue that draws me in. So again, I'm just randomly picking spots on the leaf to fill. And then I'll do the same with that mustardy yellow. I'm going to water it down a fair amount. And I've got it loaded into my brush. And I'm just going to randomly touch areas again. I'm going to go back and reload my brush, clean brush with those pigments. Just because when I touch my brush to that leaf, I'm picking up green again. So I want to clean off that brush and reload with that yellow. And it's going to be like super subtle. And it might just be a tiny hue change for your leaf, but you're going to know that it's special. Now I've missed one spot here on my leaf. So I'm going to go in and drop some of that tealy stuff into that. Okay, let's go on to our little stem, and we've got some green, I can't think of what they're called. The leaves that are wrapped tightly around a closed bud. Cannot for the life of me think what they're called. So carefully, because this is so thin. You might even want to drop down to a smaller brush. It's completely up to you. Get those little tiny leaves as well. And then we're going to do some of the outer greenery on the bud. So again, you might want to switch to a thinner, more fine. 1 second, guys. I apologize. All right. Of course, now I have to readjust my camera. Okay. All right. So we're going to go in and do that other green. Let's go start with the medium green. So again, careful.
And this is pretty concentrated pigments. And see, I did go out of the line there just because I think the level of water is, yeah, it's fairly high. So be aware of how much water in those spaces. I'm going to touch the end of that leaf too. I'm going to go up and drop in color. And I'm going to just touch tealy green and just touch it back into some of those spots so I can keep that kind of color that we have on our main leaves there. Okay, it's looking good. And see how the color has softened with our rose. It's not as vibrant as the actual pigments were. Okay, and you can leave it at that, or you can start loading in layers. And that's what's really nice about watercolors, that you can play and add different levels. So you can have a lot of fun. And the leaves are starting to dry back as well, which is fun. There's a teeny tiny itty bitty piece right there that I did not get as the background. So I'm just taking a light touch of our yellow paint and painting that in, just because I forgot it, but that's okay. All right. Let's put a little bit more color back into our rose. Let's deepen things here. I still have pink on my palette off to the side. I'm just going to re-wet it and mix it so we have an even pigment. And I'm not even going to go wet on wet, I think, this time. I think I'm just going to brush some more pigmented paint into that area. Gonna move down just a bit here. So you can brush a little bit into kind of wherever you want a little bit more concentrated. I'm doing it where there might be some shadow, just to add a little bit more pigmented areas. And you can soften it by drawing it out to the outer edges of your petals. This is where you get to have fun and play. So I'm also going to create some of that little peachy pigment by mixing my pink and my orange in together. So it's a little bit softer than that bright pink pigment. I'm just going to scuttle through the center. I'm going to put, I've got more pigmented orange on my brush now. Just putting in some of those variegated drops of color. So I'm just spreading now. I'm just taking from some of the cooling petals and just spreading it around, showing some of the petals some love. Okay. There we go. You're obviously going to have more pigmented or darker center, so you can also do that at this junction in time too, is just pull some of those more pigmented paints back into that center to deepen and darken that center. Okay. Again, we've just added more deeper pigments, and of course that's going to dry back as well. So let's go in and do the same to our leaves. I'm going to load my brush with that medium green with a moderate amount of water loaded into my brush. So again, I'm going to kind of work wherever there's going to be shadow this time. This is just my preference. You can load whatever color you want, wherever you want it. So I'm just kind of working down like the veiny centers and anywhere kind of underneath anything that's overlying. That petal is overlying that leaf, so it's going to have a shadow. Now I'm going to load some of that bluey green or that tealy green, and I'm just touching with fair amount of pigment, full strength pigment. It's very saturated pigment, so it's going to add quite a bit of darkness and depth. And I'm going to do the same to the greenery on that blossom. We still have to color in that blossom as well. Okay. All right, we're looking better. We're looking more like a rose. And with watercolor, you can go many different ways. You can go abstract, you can go realistic. You make it soft and open and opaque, or opaque. It's kind of whatever you want to do. That's the beauty of watercolor. Okay, so I'm going to load our nice rich pink pigment to the brush, and I'm just going to drop, if I can, pink pigment into those teeny tiny little spots where the rose petals are peeking through. Ooh, I got it. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit more full strength pigment to my palette here off to the side. And I'm gonna go into the center of our rose again. And add a little bit even darker. I'm going to go in some of these bigger and just even add more pigment to the shadow areas. So you can pick. I'm not working with a specific sunlight source, so it's kind of wherever you want to drop them. There's no rhyme, no reason, just have fun. There's no point when you're learning to make things more difficult for yourself. So just play. And you know what? Even though you think it's not dark enough or anything like that, you can always set it aside and come back to it. It's okay to do that. Learning is all about practicing and experimenting with what you have. You don't have to go and buy expensive supplies. And that's what's so great about card making. And you know what? Because you've put love into your card, whether it's 5 minutes of love or hours of love, whoever special gets your card is going to appreciate all the work that you've sat and done and learned and practiced. So never be ashamed to share your art, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or an expert. Okay, guys, because it's all about sharing the love. So create that really simple card, send it to your grandma, send it to your neighbor, send it to your girl pal halfway across the country. Okay. So all I used was, $12 to $15 color palette of watercolor paints that you might find at Walmart. All there is 12 colors. Yes, I do have a couple of water brushes which help. So if you're going to invest, I might recommend a couple of these, like a large, a medium, and a small type brush. But the best thing I suggest is investing in a good watercolor paper. I know at my art store, they actually had small pads of a mixture of different watercolor papers, all kind of bound into a little pad. So you can try you could try cold press or hot press or textured or smooth or which was, I thought was excellent. What a great market papers to try. So that you might even recommend that to your own local art store. Is that they take small pieces, 2 or 3 of the same paper even, and bind them into a little book so that they can sell them for trial samples. Because you know what? As a card maker, that would be amazing. So thanks for joining me today. I appreciate that you've come. I hope this inspires you too to create. I'm going to let this dry and I will post a finished card product on my my Instagram, so you can look me up at God, I can't remember it. Hang on 1 second. Oh my God. Anyway, I will put it in the comment or the information below. So I'm having a brain moment at the moment. And you can see my fun. It's going to be very simple because obviously I want to play up our lovely little rose. So grab a fun medium and join me. And Julie over on the blog is going to have a special challenge for you guys. So can't wait to see what she has in store for you. Thanks for joining me. Have a great week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye, guys.